So a lot has happened this week, not the least of which was Sony's State of Play. I'm not going to go into too much detail on that here as I have another video that goes over all the announcements, but for a quick TLDR, Concord was revealed to a meh reaction, God of War Ragnarok is coming to PC and requires a PSN account, Dynasty Warriors Origin gave us a look at 1 vs 1000 combat, Infinity Nikki is a dress-up action-adventure game that frankly felt a little out of place at the event, Ballad of Antara is a free-to-play Souls-like that left me confused, Behemoth is a VR game with huge monsters, Alien Rogue Incursion was teased for everyone hoping to have a heart attack in VR, Marvel Rivals announced a July beta, Where Winds Meet is a cool-looking Chinese action-adventure hack-and-slash thing. Until Dawn's remake was shown off and also requires a PSN account on PC. Path of Exile 2 revealed some cross-play and cross-progression features. Silent Hill 2 is launching later this year and showed off some new gameplay. Monster Hunter Wilds looks amazing but isn't coming out for quite a while. And finally, Astro Bot is back and stealing all the attention. Of course, I give some more detailed thoughts on the PSN and PC requirement thing if you're interested in that. I also encourage you to take a look at the full video for more details if you are interested. Otherwise, let's jump right in. Microsoft are taking one hell of a chance with Black Ops 6 releasing on Game Pass day one. Now, I'm of three minds about this move. My consumer brain says, hell yeah, more access to popular games for gamers, I'm all for it. My analytical brain says, wait, what? Call of Duty regularly brings in 20 to 30 million in sales. Microsoft's just fine wrecking that number for Game Pass subscribers? And then there's the Call of the Void brain, which isn't really relevant, but it does enjoy watching these big companies reenact the bike stick meme. So yeah, Call of Duty Black Ops 6 is announced to be coming to Game Pass day one. While this isn't exactly surprising given the discussion around Game Pass's failing model the past year or so, it also is surprising because of Game Pass's failing model. If you're confused about just what exactly is Microsoft's plan, you're not alone, and to be honest, I don't think even Microsoft knows what their next move actually is. Because, and this is my own theory here, but I'm sure you'll see what I mean, what exactly is the overlap between big spending Call of Duty players and the overall Game Pass market? Are lots of Call of Duty players also interested in games like Hollow Knight, Superliminal, Death's Door, or Escape Academy? Because Microsoft is gambling a lot of money that there's a big overlap. And hey, of course they have analytics I don't have, but in my own experience, 15-year-old Timmys spending way too much money on weapon skins in Call of Duty aren't the same sorts of people that are chomping at the bit to play Superliminal. But what do I know? When Game Pass was first announced, the plan was to subsidize smaller games while also putting out bigger first-party releases once every quarter. And if that already sounds like a paper-thin idea, that's because it is. Not that it couldn't work, because it absolutely could, but it only works in the way that building a house of cards works. If one card falls, maybe you're okay, maybe you're not. If an important card falls, well, you're screwed. In order to subsidize and support smaller indie games such as Hi-Fi Rush, then it's crucial that Microsoft is actually hitting that target release of at least one first-party game per quarter. If those big tentpole titles flop, or worse, never happen, then that leaves the smaller game devs floundering because their game is on Game Pass, meaning no one's buying it because they don't need to. So if no one is buying the small games since they're on Game Pass, and if Microsoft is failing to release the big games on time, then where the fuck is the money coming from, hey? Game Pass, in and of itself, isn't even remotely close to being able to support and sustain both big devs and small devs. And worse still, each big game that flops or fails to bring in higher subscriber counts to Game Pass means less revenue for Game Pass. You see the vicious circle that's being created here? So here's the plan, even though it's more like a gambit than a plan. By releasing a huge title like Black Ops 6 on Game Pass, Microsoft hopes to bolster the subscription model's numbers, thus making good on their original goal of using big tentpole titles to keep the lights on for everyone. The hope is that by sacrificing a measure of that 20 to 30 million in Call of Duty sales, they'll boost Game Pass's viability as a business model in the short term, giving them some wiggle room as they figure out how to make the subscription service work in the long term. In theory, it makes sense, but in practice, I am more than a little skeptical. The question I keep asking myself is, okay, yeah, but what if it doesn't work? Or what if it works in the short term, but Microsoft fails to capitalize on it in the long term? And it should be noted that failing to capitalize on the service for the long term is exactly what's led Game Pass to this precipice to begin with. And yes, this is absolutely a make or break gambit for the entire Game Pass model. Because if this strategy fails, I promise you, more studios will be closed, more layoffs will happen, and I even bet some higher-ups will announce they're stepping down or retiring or going on hiatus or whatever other euphemism they decide to use for being fired. Furthermore, indie devs and even larger studios will view Game Pass with even more skepticism than they already do, which will lead to fewer deals, fewer smaller games on the service, which of course will diminish Game Pass's ability to sustain itself. So yeah, if this Black Ops Gambit fails in the short or long term, Microsoft's business model will fall into chaos even more than it already has. And it should be noted that even if it does succeed, even if Black Ops 6 does bring enough subscribers to justify Game Pass, they got to do that again, and again, and again, and again, without fail, or it will fail. Microsoft has already made the move to go multi-platform, and people are already wondering what's the point of buying an Xbox. So if Game Pass fails, then seriously, what is the point of owning an Xbox? Everyone see how this house of cards is teetering yet? Have you asked the next logical question? If the Black Ops 6 Gambit fails, then Game Pass fails. If Game Pass fails, Xbox as a console fails. If Xbox as a console fails, where does that leave Microsoft Gaming as a division of Microsoft? That's an honest question. I have no idea what the answer is, and it's way above my pay grade, but merely the fact that we may have to actually ponder this question in the near future is wild. Imagine going back even just a couple years and someone telling you, in a few years, Microsoft's entire gaming division will be in crisis mode. Crazy. But let's not get too carried away. Microsoft as a company isn't remotely close to any sort of failure, and Microsoft's gaming division isn't suddenly going to explode and disappear. But the winds, they are a-changing, and depending on how this next year goes for Phil Spencer, CEO of Microsoft Gaming, there's a pretty high chance he'll be swept away in those winds. And don't think you're immune from those winds yourself either. Yes, you. If you're someone who loves the Game Pass or Xbox as it is today, well, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but that thing you love is almost certainly about to undergo some big changes. This week, a number of Kerbal Space Program 2 devs shared on LinkedIn, including the senior design manager, Quinn Duffy, that the studio would be facing layoffs. This was already rumored, but now it seems to be here. While no specifics were given, a warn notice was filed in Washington State, which specifically listed June 28th as the closure, as well as 70 workers for the number. If you don't know, a warn notice is required to be filed when a company of more than 100 workers intends to lay people off or have some kind of closure. Well, that notice was filed, and then CEO Strauss Zelnick had the gall to say in an interview that it hadn't shut down either studio. Mr. Zelnick has done this shit before too. Anyone remember a little-known game by the name of BioShock? Of course you do, we all do. Well, 2K Marin, the devs behind BioShock 1 and 2, got this exact same treatment back in 2014. Mr. Zelnick said the same thing when people began to ask about the studio after it went silent. And this guy actually said that 2K Marin was still around and that future BioShock games would be made by them, while simultaneously laying off most of the team. Which, by the way, was another lie, as in 2019 it was announced that Cloud Chamber had taken over 2K Marin's old space, as well as the BioShock franchise. And still, Mr. Zelnick has not had the decency to just say the studio was gone. And now, unfortunately, Intercept Games and Roll7 are getting the same treatment. Fire the team, but keep the studio around in name only, and then turn to the public and cowardly say, oh no, these studios are still totally around and totally not shut down. They're still making games, even though no one's there to make them. Anyway, sorry to rant, but as you can tell, that kind of repugnant behavior really pisses me off. So, here's to Intercept Games and Roll7. Yet more studios, games, and creativity lost so that people that have more money than they can ever realistically spend can hoard even more, not to mention the jobless developers now facing some very tough decisions. I hope you all land on your feet. And wouldn't you know it, Take-Two decided to pull some more weirdness after I was done recording. Firstly, I want to read this word salad PR bullshit quote that CEO Strauss Zelnick said when speaking about GTA 6 coming out on the PC. When addressing the lack of an announcement regarding a PC release, Mr. Zelnick vomited out this drivel. Well, the lack of an announcement is not something that could be set in stone as near as I could tell, because the only thing that happens after the lack of an announcement is an announcement, I suppose, or a continuing lack of an announcement. I guess that could happen too. It doesn't seem to me that either would be set in stone. But Rockstar has an approach to platforms which we've seen before, and they will make more announcements in due time. I do believe that the right strategy for our business is to be where the consumer is, and historically, what this company has done is address consumers anywhere they are, on any platform that makes sense over time. What the fuck did he just say? And don't get me wrong. I know what he just said, but my God, have you ever heard anything that pointless? Watching CEOs avoid answering questions is hilariously frustrating. Getting a suit to directly answer any question is like asking a toddler to use their legs properly. In each case, both participants are going to fall right on their ass and look dumb. But at least toddlers look cute. Okay, now that that's out of the way, let's get to something a little bit more serious. Now, the original topic of the story about Take-Two silently shutting down studios but avoiding telling anyone in hopes to avoid negative attention from both the public and investors. In an article over on gamesindustry.biz, which was reported Thursday, May 30th this week, a spokesperson for the publisher told gamesindustry.biz that its private division label will continue to make updates on Kerbal Space Program 2. This was in light that Roll7 and Intercept Games were being shut down, specifically Intercept Games, as they're the ones working on Kerbal Space Program 2. And then, literally 24 hours later, an IGN article comes out with this headline. So firstly, they denied the studios are even being closed. Then they closed the studios. Then they say Private Division will be the overarching indie label that will continue to support Kerbal Space Program 2. But nope, then we learn that not only are they trying to shut it down, but they've been in talks to sell it off, and they actually have a buyer, an unnamed private equity firm according to IGN. Meaning the closure and sell-off conversations have already been underway before they said Private Division was taking over Kerbal Space Program 2. So which is it, Mr. Zelnick? If Private Division is taking over Kerbal, then why are you closing it and trying to sell it? Are you allergic to the truth? MultiVersus, Warner Brothers' answer to Nintendo's Super Smash Bros., has released to a pretty mixed reception, which is really weird given that it's been over a year since the lengthy open beta ended. On one side, you've got the players who are enjoying the experience, which was reflected in the game's 140,000 players on launch day. That said, the peak players during the open beta reached 153,000, and just a couple days after the game's launch, we're already down to 52K. Part of that player drop is tied to the other side of the player base who aren't very happy with how slow the gameplay feels now compared to the open beta. Coupled with a more zoomed in camera, the combat just feels clunkier than it used to. Furthermore, for some reason, which I'll touch on next, locked characters can no longer be tested in practice mode, which again, players were able to do in the beta. And of course, no modern gaming complaint will be complete without discussing monetization. Now, I can't tell you with 100% certainty that characters are locked out of practice mode because Warner Brothers doesn't want you to know what you're buying beforehand, because that would mean you may only buy one character, the one you want. But what I can tell you is that Rift levels require owning not only a character, but also a skin. I can also tell you that there's a PvE mode locked behind freemium time-gated mobile crap. I can also tell you that you're going to be juggling multiple currencies to gain access to the game's unlocks. If those things alone turn you off, well, I can hardly blame you. Despite my obvious distaste for the monetization, it's been far from a disastrous launch to be sure, but given the games industry's out-of-control number chasing, will this be enough to please Warner Brothers? Guess we'll see. Previews for Destiny 2's The Final Shape are coming online, and so far the expansion is looking like it may please longtime fans. In particular, people seem to be enjoying the Pale Heart's strange level geometry and the uncanny aesthetic, as well as the addition of the first fully new enemy since Destiny 1. The new Prismatic class, likewise, has received general positivity thanks to its unique playstyle and emphasis on flexibility. One common complaint that I've run into was the overall meh feeling about the story. Which isn't to say it's bad, it just seems to be somewhat unexpected and lacking in that satisfying conclusion that is so hard to nail in any ending, especially if it's been going on for this long. But it should be noted that the complete story hasn't been revealed to playtesters, so the general consensus still has time to change once the full plot is known. All in all, Destiny 2's conclusion seems like a fun expansion, if not the most satisfying of endings, at least for the time being. And of course, just as soon as I finished recording the Destiny 2 segment, a Dungeons & Dragons crossover event was announced, as well as Sony pulling an oopsie and leaking the game. As for the D&D crossover, it includes some cosmetics, armors, and a figurine, so I guess check that out if that's your thing. Less lighthearted is the fact that Sony managed to leak some aspects of the game. And don't worry, I'm not going to be talking about any spoilers. In fact, I won't be talking about anything except to let you know that the leak is out there. So if avoiding spoiler territory is important to you, I advise some vigilance online for a bit. Anyway, back we go. And finally, we'll close out the news with the Whirlwind. Well, Ubisoft managed to get loudly booed this week at their Blast R6 event in the UK when they announced a $10 a month subscription for their 9-year-old game, Rainbow Six Siege.
In order to make members feel like true VIPs on Siege. So as always, we'll be listening to the feedbacks.
What's even worse is the fact that if you want everything in this new Battle Pass, you've got to stay subbed for 3 full months. That's right, a pay-to-play game with microtransactions now also wants you to pay a consecutive monthly fee. But it gets even better. The newest season has barely any content added to it. No new operator, just a couple remasters, and Stadium Alpha is back, but not in ranked. It's almost as if they locked all the new seasonal content away in the new Battle Pass instead of including it in the season. Interesting. But hey, if you're tired of giving Ubisoft your money, at least there's Fallout 76, Fortnite, and GTA Online, all of which have added a subscription service relatively recently. Enjoy. Of course, instead of throwing your hard-earned cash into that bottomless pit, why not take a look at this? Starstruck Vagabond released this week to mostly positive reviews, and if you've never heard of it, there's a good chance you've heard of the brain behind the game, Ben Yahtzee Croshaw, everyone's favorite discount Trey Parker. Unfortunately, this week has been too busy for me to check it out. Next week is going to be even busier, what with all the conventions and inevitable announcements that are coming, but I'm definitely going to be picking this up as soon as I have time. So what's the game all about? Well, the Steam page sums it up as a story-driven, chill-out, work-life simulator in the vein of Stardew Valley, albeit with spaceship maintenance and cargo delivering instead of farming. Odd job your way around space, keeping your ship from falling apart, forge relationships with your crew, and perhaps you'll find a new purpose in life. So, Stardew Valley meets Starbound meets FTL? If that's up your alley, maybe give it a peek, especially if you like Yahtzee's brand of irreverent humor. CD Projekt Red posted their financials and increased their year-over-year profits by 44%, mostly on the back of Phantom Liberty. It was also revealed that work on Cyberpunk 2077 is now officially completed. In the end, the vision for the game didn't completely come together as originally advertised, but what we ended up with is still a pretty great game. Currently, CD Projekt Red has 3 games in the pipe: Cyberpunk 2, which is being worked on at the Boston studio, Polaris, which is the codename for the next mainline Witcher game that'll start the new trilogy. It's taking its dev time over in Europe, and the Witcher 1 remake is being shared between CD Projekt Red and Fool's Theory. And honestly, I'm looking forward to all 3 of these, so here's hoping that they've learned their lessons and we won't repeat the horrific 2020 release. Now in some quick Dragon's Dogma 2 news, the game has sold over 3 million copies, which should make Capcom happy, especially when you consider the mixed reaction the game received from gamers. The first Dragon's Dogma game had this effect as well. Some loved it, and for others it just never clicked. Whether or not 3 million sales hits Capcom's own internal goals for the game remains to be seen, and of course there's still plenty of time for the game to find its place in the RPG landscape. Hopefully in the end, the result is good enough for us to get a Dragon's Dogma 3, because I really loved both of those games. Over in some quick Helldivers 2 news, things are really heating up with the war against the Terminids. The newest major order has been given, and it's going to have some major implications for the future, regardless of how it plays out. So just what brand of democracy are we spreading? Oh, just the kind that turns an entire planet into a black hole? Yep. Meridia, the bug-infested, unsightly stain on democracy, has been slated for extermination using dark fluid, a completely understood and not insanely risky weapon taken from the Illuminate that absolutely will not have any unintended consequences. Nope, I'm sure this will be fine, just fine. But of course, we all know it won't be, and we all know that the Illuminate are almost certainly coming soon in some form or another. The major order will last throughout the weekend and likely change with 2 days expected patch. I say expected because by no means is it confirmed, so do your duty, divers, and go destroy some bugs. EA, the game company who long ago stopped asking people to hold their beer and instead they went full wisest wizard when making company decisions. They announced some more wonderful, amazing, awesome things that gamers everywhere loved this week. Now you can be pressured into logging into The Sims 4 each week to get some freebies. Yay. But they're free, right? Surely there's nothing wrong with giving free content out, is what I would be saying if it was any company other than EA or Sony or Microsoft or indie companies, I guess. You see what I mean? Let's not pretend that these weekly login rewards are anything other than market testing. And if their test performs well, I promise you, I sincerely promise you that they will be added into something more robust. their own weird Sims 4 battle pass packed with FOMO. No. I have no insider knowledge, no connections, nothing. But it's EA, come on. Do you really think they're going to do this free event stuff out of the goodness of their hearts? But hey, if you like this kind of thing and want a battle pass system in your premium game that's also a Sims game that has over $1,000 of premium DLC, I guess this is for you. So EA lost the FIFA naming rights last year, but churned out EA Sports FC 24 as if nothing happened aside from a casual name change. But rumor has it that 2K Games is now about to step onto the pitch with an officially licensed FIFA game. But don't get too excited, soccer fans, and don't tell me to call it football. I have a football, and it's made for throwing, not kicking, hence the perfect name, football. Yeah, I know we Americans make no sense. I'm sorry, world. Anyway, as I was saying, best not get too excited as this is just a rumor based on some tweets. The first one was from Mike Straw of InsiderGaming.com earlier in February when he tweeted the initial rumors of a 2K-led FIFA title. This week, Moplay Inc., a gaming retailer based in Ghana, Africa, expanded the rumor saying that the partnership is confirmed and that FIFA 2K25 is launching this year. Now, as always, don't give rumors too much credence, but 2K is a logical fit, given their other sports titles and the financial backing. June's looking to be an incredibly busy month for game announcements, so perhaps we'll learn more in a week or two. We got a handful of updates to the Dragon Quest franchise this week, including a tease for the anticipated Dragon Quest III HD 2D remake. The 1988 classic, yeah, we are going way back for this one, will be brought onto the modern stage using the really cool art style from the Octopath Traveler series. With basically no news of this remake since it was announced back in early 2021, fans of the series will no doubt be interested to see what comes next. And speaking of what comes next in the mainline franchise, Dragon Quest XII. The Flames of Fate got a breath of fresh air this week. Well, not so much a breath of fresh air, more like someone cracked the window open so series creator Yuji Horii could yell through the gap that the game was still being worked on and totally not canceled given the most recent cancellations over at Square Enix. So it's good the game isn't dead, but we'll have to wait a little bit longer to find out anything else. And lastly, 2 mobile Dragon Quest games, Champions and Keshi Keshi, will be shut down at the end of July. Now this will mostly only impact Japanese gamers, but as we're chatting about the franchise in general, I thought I'd give it a mention. The Rogue Prince of Persia roguelike is out now in early access, and between this and The Lost Crown, it's looking as if the series is returning to good form. Reviewers are praising the game's Dead Cells pedigree, story, movement, and overall presentation from art to sound. However, other reviewers have noticed that the game is definitely in an early access state, far more than say something like Hades 2. With criticisms being leveled at unrefined weapons and the amulet system being a little lacking, short run times, and no voiceovers. But this is early access, and this is why it exists, so if you are interested in seeing how the game's development proceeds, at least you know you're getting something relatively decent right off the bat, but it does have some time in the oven left. Just know what you're getting into with any early access game before you open your wallet. There were 2 more game-to-screen adaptations announced this week. The first one is weirdly enough Just Cause, an action-adventure game that really hasn't been relevant since 2018, and even then, Just Cause 4 wasn't exactly well received. Angel Manuel Soto? I think that's how you pronounce his name? Anyway, he'll be helming the project, which immediately has me a little worried because Mr. Soto's last film was Blue Beetle, a film I literally walked out on. But if Just Cause isn't your cup of tea, then perhaps Netflix and Minecraft can pull it together and make something worth watching. This one will be coming to us courtesy of Wildbrain, who have had a hand or two in making Sonic Prime, Carmen Sandiego, and Ninjano Dragons Rising. All 3 shows I have zero knowledge about, but the reviews looked alright online, at least from an outside looking in perspective. Of course, neither Just Cause nor the Minecraft series have a release date yet, but you know what does have a release date? The Minecraft live-action movie is set for April 4th, 2024, but this was announced way back in 2014, so who the hell knows if or when this thing is ever actually coming out. My Time at Sandrock released their Monster Whisperer DLC this week, which adds the ability to capture and befriend creatures. That's really all there is to say about this. I just wanted to mention it because I loved my time at Portia, or Portia if you're a heathen. I played it during the pandemic, and man, did it do wonders for my deteriorating mental health during that miserable period. Because of that, I've got a soft spot for this series, so I can't help but tell people about it. If you haven't played either of these games, pick one, you can't go wrong. What if I told you there was a little-known game called Banana on Steam with over 31,000 peak players and over 3,000 reviews leading to a very positive rating? What if I then told you that said game is all about clicking on a banana? That's it. That's the game. Click the banana. Oh, it's got some fancy DLC in case you want to click on a different banana. I have nothing more to add to the story. Well done, Internet. Lastly, I'm going to leave you with this. The city of Azusa in California has arrested the serial slingshot shooter. For about 10 years, a neighborhood in Azusa was home to a villain going around and shooting people in windows with ball bearings. Obviously, finding the culprit of such a petty crime was low on the police radar, as well as just a very difficult crime to investigate in general. However, this week, an 81-year-old man was finally arrested as police discovered most of the ball bearings were being fired from his backyard.
Ladies and gentlemen, we got him.
Why this 81-year-old dude was doing this? No one really knows, and he's not telling either. No injuries were reported due to his behavior, but you can't deny that 10 years of annoying dings and dents would be rather infuriating. And just who is this 81-year-old madman? Well, his name, and I'm not kidding, is Prince King. Prince King, the serial slingshot shooter, has been apprehended. You can rest safe. Goodbye.